This is a message for everyone on Earth. A solution has been found and a program set in motion to save humanity. But above all, it's important to understand that we won't be able to stop the destruction of the planet until we have a clear vision. What to change, what to replace it with, and of course, how. The majority of people would like to see a better world, but if they don't invest in this revolution, it's because they don't have a concrete vision of what that better world could be. So, here is a concrete program for a revolution that will transform this destructive anti-civilization into a fertile paradise. But first, let me ask you a question. Are you one of those people who have decided that there is no other choice but to destroy this planet and all its living beings? Did you decide to kill that little girl and that little boy and all those people here? Is that really what you've chosen? And if it is not your choice, are you sure that you are doing everything you can to stop this? The world is not in a bad way because of those who are acting badly, but because of those who know it's bad and allow it to continue. And if you are ready to do something about it, but don't know how, you will find out in this video how to find your place in this alliance for a fertile revolution. This proposal is intended above all for those who are willing to devote themselves entirely to this revolution for a fertile world. Because let's face it, we are at war, or to be more precise, a war is being waged against us, the people of the world. It is important to accept that fact, because when you are at war, your priorities change and you can no longer go on with your life as if nothing was the matter, especially if you pretend to love children. This war is far more dangerous than the 2 world wars put together, because this time it is nothing less than a war against the entire human race, but also against nature, the birds, the trees, and the planet. It's a pre-programmed mass execution, but that doesn't make it any less genocidal. So, the time has come to choose sides. The side of the children, of truth, of nature, of evolution and of life, or the side of the so-called adults of stagnation, lies, appearances, chemistry, and money. In fact, most of those who consider themselves adults have resigned themselves to serving a system that is destroying all life on Earth. This is not adult behavior in the sense of being mature and responsible. So, the moment has come to ask ourselves what the problems are and what the solutions are. But for this to happen, a majority of people must first understand that the Western world is based on a huge lie. And that's where we have to start, because that lie is covering up the solution. Not only saving, but above all giving birth to our true humanity, because I hope you have understood that we are not human yet. For the moment, seen from space, those who call themselves humans are behaving like cancer cells. They multiply and devour everything in their path, even the body and planet they inhabit. So, before building the new world, we need to understand why this one didn't work. In fact, there is a cause of all causes for the chaotic state of our world. A cause that leads to almost every other causes. The main source of the avoidable suffering and destruction of our anti-civilization is our patriarchal Judeo-Christian Muslim culture. We live in an upside-down culture because it is in total opposition to human nature. Most people believe that the main characteristic of our so-called patriarchal culture is that men are the leader. But it's not true. The main characteristic of patriarchal culture is that it perverts soul to such an extent that it leads to the destruction of all life. It is nothing less than a program of self-destruction. The fact that its leaders are men is only one very effective means of achieving this. The ways of living and thinking in patriarchal culture cloud consciousness by preventing people from connecting with their inner selves. This leads to feelings of insecurity, selfishness, and materialism. What's more, because we need to connect somewhere, we try to hold on to something outside ourselves, which makes us more dependent and manipulable. It is often stated that religions were needed to take us out of barbarism, but the opposite is true. It was patriarchal religions that plugged humanity into an era of barbarism, and we are still not out of it. This has allowed us to rediscover the greatest secret of our civilization, which is that all patriarchal culture religions are misappropriations of the original fertile culture, which integrates the sacred feminine and highlights the divine mother. For example, the message of Mary Magdalena and Jesus was the fertile culture of the sacred feminine. Every detail of Catholic teaching is in total opposition to the messages of Mary Magdalena and Jesus. The Vatican has quite simply stolen original Christianity. But it is also the same scenario that happens in Judaism, Islam, Buddhism, and Hinduism. So, the Vatican and the religious authorities of all patriarchal religions are simply impostors. And yet, those fertile cultures are not so ancient. They were in the majority in Europe until the 16th century or even the 17th century, contrary to official history, which has been written by patriarchal clerics. In fact, patriarchal clerics have rewritten history to their advantage to make us forget the existence of those fertile cultures of the sacred feminine. They have tried to erase them from history, tagging them with pejorative names like pagan, savage, barbarian, heretic, or even airy. But in fact, they were all fighting under the same banner, that of freedom, real democracy, and the mother goddess. These include, for example, the Essenes, the Goths, the Viking, the Templar, and the Cathars. Perhaps you might say this doesn't interest you because you're not religious, but you are wrong. Because those who call themselves atheists follow patriarchal religious injunction on a daily basis without being aware of it. I'm referring to very concrete things like the way we love, make love, procreate, give birth, eat, sleep, raise children, have male-female relationship, breathe, commune with nature, and so on. Our patriarchal culture has even driven us to destroy the planet, condition us to love upside down and to fall in love with people we don't love. I've given you a great summary here, but to really understand the whys and wherefores, I refer you to an ebook that you can get for free if you like. It is important to read this ebook because to heal you need to understand in detail how every injunction from our patriarchal culture is there to make us weak, to make us suffer, and to turn us into machines of destruction. You need to understand so that you can then teach others what you've learned. There can be no freedom without a minimum of knowledge. Fertile culture are above all culture of freedom and true democracies in the sense that they empower individuals. They work with local democracies, in particular with talking circles, where everyone can express themselves, including children. One can always find the fairest possible consensus among people of good faith. Gnosis is the backbone of fertile cultures. It believes that salvation is achieved through knowledge, experience, and self-development. Fertile culture put the spiritual development, evolution, and well-being of the individual first and foremost. Instead, for patriarchal sleep-inducing cultures and religions, salvation is achieved through forgiveness, through following obligation and prohibition. Patriarchal culture and religion are not spiritual culture. They are deeply materialistic and encourage people to define themselves according to their possession. These fertile cultures are often called matriarchal culture by patriarchalists to make believe that it was women who were in charge. But this is completely false. In fertile culture that include the sacred feminine in the Trinity, women and men are 100% equal. However, it is women who have the last word when it comes to children. Fertile cultures endorse the concept of the mother goddess and the warrior healer futures of the feminine. Women therefore make up the majority of the healer troops. They are trained at a very early age to fight not only so that they can defend themselves in everyday life, but also so that they can fight alongside the men in the event of war. For the fertile sacred feminine, one mom and one dad are not enough to raise a child, because a child needs attention 24/7 until he or she gains a certain independence. As the African proverb goes, it takes a village to raise a child. In fact, if a child is left alone or with people he doesn't know, or even with people he doesn't want to be with, when he is not intellectually capable of understanding why he is being left alone, he will have the impression that he is being abandoned, which may even lead the child to believe that he is going to die. This will lead to a fear of loving, a fear of being abandoned, an Oedipus complex, possessiveness, jealousy, and a lack of self-confidence. But above all, it creates neurotic relationships in which we become attached to a person who reminds us of the loved ones we have missed and or who have loved us badly, often mom or dad. What's more, the modern nuclear family doesn't leave parents enough time to continue their evolution. In fact, unlike patriarchs who wants to freeze everything, fertiles are obsessed with the evolution of individuals and their cultures. Anything that stagnates ends up rotting. Consequently, they are very tolerant of other culture, religion, because they want to learn from them. In patriarchal cultures, most children didn't receive enough love. They will often spend their whole life chasing the external love and recognition they didn't get as children. In order to be loved, those who lacked love as children will do whatever it takes to be accepted by others, even if it means building false identities and serving a system that destroys everything, as it is currently the case. In patriarchal cultures, Most people take no interest in how the world works because they are too busy trying to fulfill their unsatisfied material, emotion, and sexual needs. You cannot blame them. It's only natural, and it's just the way it is. And that's why everything is done in fertile culture to ensure that people are satiated, at ease, regarding these 3 points, so they can finally turn their attention to something else. In fertile culture, these 3 basic needs are addressed and satisfied thanks on the one hand to the extended family and on the other to the existence of school, university, temple of knowledge, where you can find everything you need: shelter, food, learning, social and sexual relations. Indeed, these universities, temples of knowledge, also provide the service of sacred male or female prostitutes so that people can learn and experience a healthy, fertile sexuality. Freed from their 3 basic needs, individuals could explore and develop their creative power in order to evolve and improve life for everyone. In patriarchal culture, however, everything is done to keep those 3 needs unfulfilled so that individuals spend all their time trying to satisfy them. In these temples of knowledge that we are going to recreate on Earth, people will be able to learn the perspective of psychology, which is one of the finest gifts the West has given the world. It is necessary in order to understand how we work and therefore to be as free as possible. If we don't understand how we work, we become victims of our emotions and neuroses, and we decide little about our lives, especially when it comes to friendships and romantic relationships. And we end up settling down and having children with people whom we don't really like. In fertile culture, growing up in an extended family means having several daddy referents and several mommy referents. This can be a group of friends, a community, but also a place where grandparents, uncle, aunts, cousins live under the same roof, as it is still sometimes the case in Latin countries, the Middle East, Africa, or Asia. This will get the child used to giving and receiving attention from different people, which in the future will make him less dependent on functional and neurotic relationships. What's more, it will accustom them to loving several people at the same time in their love relationships, while patriarchal children are programmed, accustomed to reserving this love for just one person. For fertile people, there is nothing wrong with wanting to live in exclusive relationships, but once you have children, it's different. The exclusive couple of the nuclear family is not solid enough to provide a stable environment for the child over the long term. If mom and dad don't have the possibility of having lovers and free time for themselves, either the couple will break up or family life will deteriorate, and it's the children who will suffer the serious consequences. For fertile people, a free society means that no one has the right to deprive another of their freedom, unless, of course, they have committed a very serious act. The fertile people, sacred feminine, fought the slave trade practiced by the Vatican with the help of Frankish kings like Charlemagne. But they also fought against the daily slavery of women and children. To this end, they categorically reject the concept of patriarchal marriage in which the woman belongs to the man and must obey him. One of the truly twisted aspects of patriarchal marriage is that even among those who don't believe in the virtue of marriage, it nurtures the myth of true love, which is meant to fulfill all your needs for all your life. Therefore, many people waste part of their lives chasing that mirage, because such a love doesn't exist. In contrast, we have the opportunity to experience many great loves, each of us which can teach us something important, something different. But if we put pressure on each relationship, thinking this is the one, we miss out on most of the rewards of human relationship. We are looking for something absolute that doesn't exist, or at least cannot be perpetual over time. The obsession with falling in love in order to fuse with a person is quite simply an illness created by the emotional shortcomings of patriarchal culture. Paradoxically, it is of course enriching to experience passion in love, but with an open eye, so that we can observe in the cold light of our spirit to what extent this relationship helps us to be ourselves or not. True love doesn't make us fall, it elevates us. That's right. Patriarchal religions don't want you to know this. It is a conscious, calculated lie. That's why they banned the ancient Greek science of love and call it heresy. I can understand them, because the teachings of the ancient Greeks on the science of love are real tools for liberating humanity. In a nutshell, see the ebook to find out more. There are 8 different types of love, linked to 8 levels of consciousness. It is appropriate, necessary, and rewarding to experience all kinds of love, but the key is to understand that trying to find one person who will nurture us with all these kinds of love at the same time and for all our lives is simply impossible. It's not possible because at different stages of our life we need different kinds of love. The ancient Greeks stressed that a person looking for the great love of their life would be doomed to a great deal of needless suffering, and that one way or another, those people suffering will end up disrupting the whole community. And that's what is happening right now. For fertile cultures, it is clearly far more interesting to have many relationships, each of which can teach us something new. In that way, we can accumulate as much knowledge and experience as possible, so that we can move in the direction of greater self-development. In fact, just a few centuries ago, the word virgin referred to a woman who was free from all external ties, whether with a man or otherwise. In those days, virgin was synonymous with free. A woman could have many lovers and still be called a virgin. This was of course the case with Mary Magdalena, who was a free woman and expert in healing and spiritual sexuality, which enable you to connect to levels of fertile awareness. The ancient Greeks also taught that it is perfectly natural to raise children with someone you do not or no longer want to make love to, and to have one or more lovers for your sex life. And in fact, that is what is happening in our world today, since the vast majority of married people cheat on their spouse. But this has created a culture of secret, lies, and hypocrisy. And when married people do not have lovers, it leads to frustration, marital violence, incest, rape, prostitution, etc., etc. As a result, patriarchal cultures treat Greek civilization as sex-obsessed barbarians. But it is patriarchal cultures that have exported their primitive, unhealthy, and ignorant sexuality to the whole world, leading to perversions of all kinds. Let's not forget that whole generation lived believing that the mere fact of taking pleasure in sexuality was a mortal sin. for which one risks burning in hell for eternity. Sorry, but teaching such a thing is really Machiavellian and diabolical. It is truly a way of erasing part of people's individuality. Patriarchal culture's obsession with erasing people's individuality begins at birth, when patriarchs rip the newborn baby from its mother's body far too early. Hence, the newborn doesn't have enough time to realize that he or she is no longer one with mom. As a result, he will tend to search outside himself for the rest of his life. He will try to rediscover the fusion he lost too early on through relationships, but it's like trying to fill a bottomless pit. Fertile people maintain the child's physical contact with the mother for as long as possible, and they maintain a presence around the child until the child is relatively autonomous emotionally and intellectually. What is needed is to maintain the continuum, a concept remarkably developed in a book that all parents should read, the continuum concept. Taking care of this continuum means creating the conditions necessary for children to succeed in maintaining their own inner connection, which will allow them to be more in tune with themselves, more aware and more autonomous. Fertile women also had abortions if it was the mother's wish. No one had the right to decide for her. But this did not happen very often because they believe that it is essential to make a conscious choice to want to raise a child before having children. To achieve this, young people learn how to enjoy sex without getting pregnant. But above all, they practice sexuality to raise their level of consciousness and create vital energy to develop their psychic powers and strengthen their physical body. For men, this means learning how to retain the semen, in other words, to make love without ejaculating. Did you know that not ejaculating during sex is considered a sin by the patriarchs? Many people believe that they are free from the chains of religion because they have sex outside religious norms. But the goal of patriarchal religions is not to deprive people of sex, but on the contrary, to make them obsessed with sex. And they have succeeded. With the same aim of preventing people from developing their innermost connections, patriarchs force couples to sleep in the same bed, while fertile culture stress the importance of sleeping alone most of the time. The fact that patriarchal people tend not to have access to their inner connection prevents them from listening to and following their authority and personal creativity. As a result, they need to copy and follow someone or something. Last but not least, it is crucial to understand that culture is defined by the substances it consumes. For instance, patriarchal culture have accustomed people to ingesting anesthetizing substances and have prohibited substances that awaken them. This has been the case for centuries with hypoglycemic foods such as alcohol and wheat. It could be said that Catholics have created a civilization of alcoholics. Even in small daily doses, it causes countless physical and mental illnesses. Yet, Catholics have practically sacralized wine, and in many countries, monks even make beer. But this has also been the case since the 18th century with added sugar. Added sugars do not nourish, they create countless diseases and make people unhappy, as the WHO declared it with great publicity in 1990. This was reinforced in the 19th century with potatoes and dairy products. Eating potatoes regularly prevents you from thinking clearly. As for dairy products, they numb our consciousness, fatigue our immune system, and create a physical dependency because when they are digested, they secrete a morphine derivative in the body. Hypoglycemic foods and substances make us emotionally fragile and therefore more easily controlled. But worst of all, they numb our consciousness. And this substance-induced numbness has been further reinforced today by food additive, fake foods, fake sugar, and chemicals. The Western world, which destroys everything, will not exist without alcohol, legal chemical drugs, and illegal drugs like cocaine. It is important to point out that cocaine is the drug that numbs consciousness the fastest. It kills the humanity within us, and that is precisely why it makes people feel good. The arrival of cocaine in the halls of power and finance coincides with the 80s and the radicalization, even the fascization of capitalism. Many replace it with legal amphetamine and other legal hard drugs, which totally dehumanize individuals. Did you know that amphetamine and methamphetamine were massively used by the Germans during the Second World War with the aim of making soldiers and the population feel no empathy, no humanity, no connection with their consciousness? This leads to atrocities that would not have taken place without this Machiavellian drug. But nowadays, it is no longer hordes of amphetamine-fueled soldiers destroying the world. They have been replaced by hordes of men in suits and ties, also high on amphetamine or other patriarchal drugs like alcohol, hard sugar, cocaine, and coffee. And I'm not shy about saying it. Shame on parents who give their children amphetamine or anti-anxiety drugs like Ritalin. I'm sorry, but that is child abuse. These children will really be helped if instead they are given microdoses of natural substances such as cannabis or psilocybin mushrooms. Chemicals are the material embodiment of fascism because they force nature to do what it doesn't want to do. This is true for nature, as in birds and trees, but it is also true for human nature because they force humans to become destructive, selfish, and evil. It is truly a violation of our will. For fertile culture, certain plants and mushrooms are necessary for the development of consciousness. And I mean necessary. Furthermore, the psilocybin in mushroom and the THC in cannabis are being rediscovered and along with other plants and mushrooms will soon replace most chemical medicines. Today, there are many documentaries, even on Netflix or YouTube, that prove this. Since 2005, science has already proven that a little cannabis is necessary for the proper functioning of our neural systems. Those substances are so important for the evolution of human beings that they were at the center of the messages of almost all religions before the patriarchal culture kidnapped and perverted them. Indeed, ceremony with plant and mushroom were the basis of true Judaism, true Christianity, true Islam, true Buddhism, and true Hinduism because they are necessary. They are called ceremonies because they are like a marriage with oneself. These ceremonies are symbolized in the West by the Grail, which is another version of the cauldron filled with magic potion found, for example, in Celtic and Viking cultures. And if the Grail is a symbol of magic mushrooms, it's because at the end of its development, Amanita muscaria curls up on itself and forms a kind of vase, a cup, a grail. With dew or rain, there can be water in the bottom which will become tinted, with the red color of the mushrooms. Some people drink this liquid directly, although I advise against this for the reasons I give in the ebook. In the Last Supper, when Jesus offers to eat his body and drink his blood, it's a metaphor, parable for psychedelic mushrooms and especially Amanita muscaria mushrooms, which are red with white spots. The Maya used to call psychedelic mushrooms the flesh of the gods, and the Essenes, the spiritual community of Mary and Jesus, called them the flesh of the Christ. Almost all Western culture revolves around magic cauldron, druids and shaman. Even the legend of Santa Claus comes from the shamans of Siberia, who delivered mushrooms at the winter solstice on December 21, enslaved, pulled by their reindeer and entered through the chimney of yurts because there was too much snow to go through the door. Have you ever wondered where the habit of decorating Christmas trees with red and white mushrooms and colorful bubbles comes from? It's because Amanita muscaria, which is red and white, often grows at the foot of fire trees, and shamans would place it between the thorns of branches to dry. Depending on their stage of development, they could be white, red and white, and sometimes even golden, like Christmas tree bubbles. In the ebook, I give you many examples of religious art that evoke the importance of mushrooms in spiritual development. Here is one of them in the chapel of Plaincourau in France. The chapel was built by the Templar in the 12th century. The fresco depicts Adam and Eve around the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. The fruit of the tree of knowledge of good and evil is quite simply mushrooms. Here is a representation of Christ's entry into Jerusalem. Having said that, the Jerusalem mentioned in the Bible does not refer to a geographical location. Jerusalem means the mountain of inner peace, which refers to a state of mind. So we could deduct that it's the mushroom that brings them to this inner connection. Here is another depiction of Jesus and mushrooms in the Canterbury Psalter. St. Mark Cathedral, Venice, Italy. This mosaic is composed of two paintings that I read from right to left. It depicts Matthew having doubts and asking Jesus how he could have risen from the dead. And Jesus says it's happened thanks to the mushroom. Here we see Buddha meditating under a huge mushroom. Cannabis was also used by fertile culture, as can be seen in this 12th century mosaic depicting Jesus healing the blind. And as you can see, in the Byzantine mosaic, the ideal is an alliance of the spirit of mushroom and that of cannabis. We must stop to lie by saying that cannabis leads to hard drugs as chemical drugs, cocaine and heroin, because it's not true. Alcohol, hard sugar and coffee leads to cocaine, heroin, or to one of the legal substitutes like amphetamine or opioid. Cannabis and magic mushrooms are not the problem, they are the solution. Along with other plants and mushrooms, they are the only alternative to the destructive and addictive chemical drugs that dehumanize people. And you cannot call them drugs because the scientific definition of a drug is to be a substance that creates physical dependence, and that's not the case. Cannabis and psilocybin mushrooms are therefore not drugs but medicine. And if they are not allowed, it's also because pharmaceutical companies cannot patent them for profit. And unlike chemical drugs, they really do cure. But mushrooms are also highly nutritious food, and anyone can grow them at home and become more self-sufficient. What's more, once you manage to recover the spore, the seeds of mushrooms, you can harvest them an infinite number, making them a nightmare for capitalists. Paul Stamets, a renowned mycophile, has even discovered a fungus that can transform soil soaked in heavy chemicals into soil that can be used for an ecological vegetable garden. We are going to be able to use them to clean up all the soil on the planet. Mushrooms are capable of transforming anything chemical and unnatural so that it returns, as it were, to the laws of nature. And they do the same thing in our bodies and our thinking systems. I would sum up by saying that even if modern medicine is capable of working miracles, particularly in urgent cases, everyday medicine does far more harm than good. The priority of today's medicine is not to cure, but to make money. In the majority of cases, it does not heal because it only eliminates the symptoms, which creates even more serious illnesses. As for this way of chemically treating the elderly, it has quite simply invented what Antonin Artaud called slow death. For the fertile culture like the Qatar Good Christians, the struggle between good and evil does not exist in absolute reality. However, there is a relative duality in our human experience. That experience of relative duality was created to awaken the warrior of light that is dormant within us. Patriarchal culture chose capitalism as a means of managing the economy because it maintains most people in a state of poverty. It was the Romans who created the foundations of capitalism with their concept of Pax Romana, Roman peace. This was defined by the fact that wealthy Roman merchants could make maximum profit in peace in the least amount of time. To achieve this, they needed roads to get goods from faraway lands and an army to force other people to accept Roman currency, the sesterces. It would therefore be more accurate to say that it was the very rich who chose a religion that suits them. It was the very rich who allowed patriarchal religions to take roots all over the world because the wealthy soon understood that this culture religion legitimized the fact that they dominate others and live off their work. As for fertile culture, they prefer bartering and local currencies. The important thing is not to amass material wealth, but to allow one's inner resource to develop. It should be pointed out that the one God prayed by patriarchs doesn't exist, or to be more precise, he only exists in the world of human thoughts and on the astral level. It is a form thought created and fed by man. It has no power in the world of matter, but it can exacerbate the emotions and influence the thoughts of those who connect with it. However, the egregor of patriarchal religions is very powerful and has a major influence on the collective unconscious. An egregore, which in short is a set of thought forms, can inflame a crowd or even a whole country and start wars. This does not mean that all religions believers feed the sleep-inducing and destructive patriarchal egregore. A large proportion of these religions believers are in their hearts in the fertile, sacred feminine state of mind without being aware of it. I will sum up by saying that patriarchal culture is a culture based on the dominant concept which allows deeply hateful and often mediocre people to become leaders and take revenge for never having succeeded in being happy and loving. Man is naturally good. It is society that corrupts him, said Jean-Jacques Rousseau. And it's time to add that it's precisely patriarchal culture that corrupts him. For the transition between this totally opposing culture, gigantic schools and universities will be built. The exploration of invisible worlds will be a priority. It's far more important than exploring space. There, people will be able to learn truly useful knowledge, all the sciences, to develop their psychic powers, as well as practice and explore all the arts. Every individual has an artistic side that needs to be expressed. Otherwise, that energy will often serve the egregores of destruction. This ebook also provides a detailed program for the transition. If you have suggestions for our new world, please come and share them on the website whose address appears on the screen. What to do when we gain power in the fields of economics, social affairs, health, education, ecology, agriculture, etc. And naturally, what we will do with all those who have brought humanity to the edge of the abyss. I'm just pointing out that vengeance and punishment are non-existent concepts in fertile cultures. Those I like to call agents will be treated with dignity, but they must not be allowed any opportunities to do harm. Ideally, they should be put to work rebuilding the world. A first objective will be that after we have been in power for 1 month, not a single human being will suffer from malnutrition, and after 1 year, each and every one of them will have a decent and safe place to live. One of our priorities will be to lift certain regions of the world out of poverty, particularly Africa, to which Westerners own their wealth. The first month after the official birth of humanity will be the month of truth. Politicians, people from finance, journalists, scientists, industrialists, leaders of multinationals, and the clergy will have to reveal to the world all their lies and things left unsaid that have led humanity to the edge of the abyss. These confessions are very important to educate the people and to prove to them that almost everything was a lie and injustice. Religions will be allowed, but religious schools will be closed. The historical lies of the patriarchal religions will be taught in every school and university on the planet. It's more than important that everybody understand how they kidnap the original fertile religions and replace them with a sado-masochistic culture, the aim of which is for a minority to have power over the majority. Financing the transition could not be more simple. Personal fortune will be limited to 3 million euros. Anything above that will be put into a communal fund for the social and ecological transition. But money that comes from sectors that have harmed the planet and people's health, like finance, oil, nuclear power, pharmaceutical groups, arm, etc., will be totally confiscated. Stock exchange will be closed, and all money that has lain dormant or gone through stock trust or other mainstream financial products will simply be confiscated. Only small shareholders will be reimbursed. A comfortable universal income will be available to all who need it. For instance, €5,000 a month for a person living in a country like Belgium, adjusting the sum according to the cost of living in different regions. The shareholders of most medium-sized and large companies will be replaced by the people who work there. Many of them will be declared to be in the public interest and can no longer be privately owned. They will be managed by the UN, whose corrupt staff will, of course, have been replaced. This will be the case, for example, of companies like Microsoft, Facebook and Google, but also all those who sell natural resources such as oil, gas, minerals, wood, water, etc. And let's not forget the food industry, petrochemical, insurance company, banks, the arms industry, and of course, the pharmaceutical mafia. Government will lose most of their powers, which will be decentralized and delegated to the regions. As for all those who have played a key part in this attempted genocide of humanity, those I call the agents, they will have to give back all the money used to bribe them. For most of them, it means they will have nothing left. But if they admit their guilt and commit to working for 15 years to repair some of the damage, they will be allowed to keep their home until they die, but will not be able to leave it to their heirs. If they refuse, or if they are not effective enough in helping humanity, they will have everything taken away from them. But there is no need to put them in prison because it's useless. Without money, they will have no power and will be unable to do any harm. They are sick and you don't punish a sick person. You try to cure them. They will be allowed to benefit from the social programs we are going to set up and enjoy a comfortable universal income that will enable everyone to live with dignity. To those who would like us to punish them, I would reply that having too much money and therefore too much power makes people crazy. No one can say with certainty whether they would have done better if they had been in their shoes. What's more, you need to see the bigger picture. This world full of injustice is there to awaken the life-protecting fire of the warrior within us. So, some of us have to play the villain in this divine comedy. But even if we have to watch them 24/7, we must make sure they don't do any more harm to others. By agent, I'm referring to the people who have played a key part in the great conspiracy around COVID and medicine in general. In the financial world is conspiracy against democracies, in industrialist schemes to impose harmful products on us, in governmental corruption in accepting the debt and pursuing total reliance on oil and nuclear power. This does not concern junior employees, but rather top executives, the top 10 hierarchical levels in major multinationals, the CEOs, the principal shareholders, and those who have used their genius, artistic or otherwise, to promote these lies. The lobbyists, lawyers, accountants, and other experts who have worked for those companies will be considered senior agents. But we must not forget judges whose rulings were unjust. Anyone over 18 who has publicly defended police violence, treat or insult conspiracy theorists, anti-vaccine activists, standard bearers of the sacred feminine fertile culture, social and environmental activists like the Yellow Vest or advised punishment against them will be considered secondary agents. This will also apply to those who publicly advocate racism, anti-Semitism, homophobia, etc. Naturally, this list remains to be completed. Secondary agents will not be treated in the same way as primary agents, but they will no longer have voting rights or the right to hold positions of responsibility for a certain period of time. As for the world of finance and stock markets, it will simply disappear. It is an intermediary that creates nothing and serves no purpose. The manufacturing of all petroleum-based plastic will be ceased along with everything that contains plastics. Yes, this means that most large factories will be closed. They will be allowed to resume production if and when they are able to manufacture compostable products. Huge forums will be held around the world to find solutions for social and ecological problems. In this ebook, I will also share different points of view with you on the last 5,000 years of humanity's history. The true history of the world has been hidden from us because that history is where the key lies to bringing about a truly human humanity. You will see that official history is riddled with lies because it was written mainly by patriarchal clerics. They spent hundreds of years burning and or banning books that contain any traces of their betrayal. And yet, all of this happened not so long ago. The politicians keep believing that France and Europe has been Christian, patriarchal version for 2,000 years, but it's completely false. I want to emphasize the fact that Europe remained predominantly Christian, pagan, sacred feminine version until the 16th or even the 17th century. So, Europe has been fundamentally Christian, pagan, sacred feminine for thousands of years, whereas the pervert patriarchal Christianity of the Vatican has only been in power, politically speaking, for 4 or 5 centuries. The entire history of Europe is a succession of war, alliance, and betrayals between the original fertile cultures which wanted the freest possible world and the barbaric patriarchal culture, religion, which wanted a world of slave ruled by a minority. Official history lies to us when it says that barbarians have repeatedly come to plunder Europe. Whether it was the Goths in the 4th century or the Viking from the 9th century onwards, it was actually a reaction of the part of what might be called the fertile pagan international of the sacred feminine. It was self-defense faced with the Roman invasion. And the reason why the Goths and Vikings so easily repelled the Roman invaders was because most of the local population fought on their side due to sharing the same cultural allegiance. For instance, in the Viking longships, the vast majority of fighters were Frankish, Germanic, or other pagans who had fled the barbarian Roman invasion. They took refuge in Denmark, which decided to help them because, once again, they were fighting to preserve the same kind of culture, religion. In fact, the Romans were the real barbarians, while the fertile pagan culture were far more civilized. The Catholic Church, allied with Frankish kings such as Charlemagne, developed the slave trade in European peoples, particularly Germans, Slaves, and Celts, on an industrial scale. They sold European slaves, particularly in the Middle East and in Muslim territories. The Vatican demanded that all non-Catholics will be killed or enslaved and in both cases that they be stripped of all their possessions. Furthermore, Charlemagne also enslaved Catholics by introducing a system of serfs and masters comparable to Indian castes. So, what we call the Viking invasion was seen by the local people as a real liberation from the hell they were going through. It was the equivalent of the Allied landings in Normandy. The Celt and Viking had such a similar culture that they mixed and created a Druidic Celtic Viking culture which was very tolerant and very similar to the original Christianity of the Mother Goddess. This culture was to dominate the Frankish kingdom until the 17th century. As for the Knights Templar, they tried to create a tolerant, just and human Europe while at the same time trying to bring Rome back into true Christianity. If Fridays 13 have kept a so bad reputation, it's because on Friday 13, 1307, most of the Templars were cowardly arrested by the King of France with the complicity of a false pope, and most of their activities to create a truly human humanity were stopped. During the 2nd century, when they practically ruled Europe, they built cathedrals, churches and chapels to the glory of the sacred feminine and therefore of true Christianity, the true Islam and the true Judaism. They built the Gothic cathedrals in honor of the gods who had liberated Europe from the oppression of the Romans 6 centuries earlier. Patriarchal religions have done everything in their power to erase the crucial role played by women in world history. The last thing they wanted was to set a bad example. The Virgin Mary Magdalena was a virgin because she was free from all outside domination or attachment. She did not belong to a man. I would like to repeat this because this information alone should spark off a veritable revolution because it sums up and proves the extent of the lies on which our culture is based. It was in fact the Virgin Mary Magdalene who began to teach the original Christianity, which includes the sacred feminine. Mary Magdalena is the most important personality in early Christianity. In fact, she is the person in the Bible of whom there are the most historical traces, particularly in the community of the Essenes in Palestine and later in the south of France. As for the Vatican version of the Virgin Mary, Mother of Jesus, she has no importance in the Bible. The Vatican only put her forward around the 19th centuries to make people believe that the Virgin was Jesus' mother, not Mary Magdalene. This was necessary because the Vatican was so desperate that the Divine Mother and Mary Magdalene continue to be more venerated and prayed for than Jesus and God the Father combined. In fact, if you look at most churches, cathedrals and other places of worship, they are in fact dedicated to the Divine Mother or to Mary Magdalene. Very, very few are dedicated to Jesus or the Almighty Father. Very, very few, and most of them are relatively recent. Most date from after the 17th, 18th century, as it was only until then that the upside-down version of Christianity really gained political power. For instance, St. Peter's Basilica in Rome only dates from the 17th century, which is historically when the Catholics really took over the world with their lies. To build it, they destroyed the basilica erected by the Emperor Constantine, no doubt because it was full of pagan symbols of the sacred feminine. Proof of this are the two fountains in St. Peter's Square, which are replicas of a fountain that once stood in front of the old Constantinian basilica. And as you can see it from this 19th century illustration, they are shaped like mushrooms. It's time to remember the importance of some women in history, because Mary Magdalena was not the only one. Aisha, Mohammed's favorite wife, was also like Mary Magdalena, destined to take up the cause of their movement religion on her husband's death. In studying Mohammed and Aisha's story, you realize that Mohammed didn't advocate crushing women, arrange marriage, or locking them up at home to look after the children. Furthermore, Aisha fought a military battle against Muhammad's cousin, who claimed Islam is spiritual inheritance. Aisha lost, and it was this cousin who first confined women to their home. I will conclude by speaking about Joan of Arc, whom the Catholics not only burned at the stake, but also hidden her behind the image as a supposed peasant who was a devout Catholic. But if you thought about it for 1 minute, you will realize that she certainly was not a good Catholic, because at that time the Inquisition forbade women from riding horses, handling swords, and wearing armor. However, most people in the region at that time still follow fertile culture, who was a mixture of Celtic and Viking culture. And one of the features of those cultures was that women fought in armies just like men. Joan of Arc is the perfect definition of a Valkyrie, the armored woman warriors on horseback, so feared by Rome's allies. They were virgin women, free from all external domination. Numerous sources claim that Joan of Arc had several lovers, including some of the captain of her guard, and therefore that she was for free love, as was the norm in fertile Celtic and Viking culture. In fact, it was not just Joan of Arc who helped defeat the English, but the entire pagan Celtic Viking army. And the reason they hide this from us is because they want us to forget that the dominant culture at the time was the Celto-Viking culture, which was very close to the original Christian culture. The pact that Jane proposed to the Dauphin was that the Celtic Viking armies would stop supporting the English and help him to be crowned King of France, in exchange for total freedom of worship, an end to the Inquisition, condemnation of Rome for its cruelty, and an end to its power over the Frankish kingdom, which also means an end to the recognition of Rome as the depositary of Christianity. Once on the throne, King Charles VII honored his promise, notably with the pragmatic Sanction of Bourges, which condemned the Roman Church for the barbarity of the Inquisition. Thanks to this, the Kingdom of France cut its ties with Rome and enjoyed almost 150 years of tolerance, while the Inquisition was ravaging Germany, Spain, and most of Europe. Then, the Vatican and its secret police, such as the Dominican and Jesuits, embarked on a policy of acting in the shadow. Whether they were writers, popes, or kings, they would murder and terrorize at every turn to definitively impose the exclusivity of the Vatican, his patriarchal vision on Christianity. It's only since then that France has been politically Christian in the patriarchal Vatican version, but for the people it took much longer. Here, the crowning of the King Charles VII in Reims in the presence of Joan of Arc. You won't find a Latin cross in most of the paintings depicting this ceremony. However, the fleur-de-lis, symbol of the sacred feminine, is omnipresent. If there is no Catholic cross in this illustration, it is because this sacrament was also a return to the alliance between French royalty and true Christianity, symbolized by the fleur-de-lis. Indeed, French royalty since the first Merovingian kings has been based on the original Christianity as taught by Marie Magdalene in the south of France a few centuries earlier. Some even say that the Merovingian kings were direct descendants of Mary and Jesus. True or not, what matters the most is that the French royal lineage was created to protect and propagate the spiritual heritage of Marie Magdalene and Jesus. But the Vatican has repeatedly dethroned royal lineage in order to place on the throne families in service of false Christianity. This was the case with Charlemagne of the illegitimate Carolingian dynasty. Hitler was so inspired by his population cleansing technique that he paid tribute to him by naming one of his battalions the SS Charlemagne. And it was to confront this explosion of violence, injustice and cruelty that the Celto-Viking Germano-Pagan Liberation Army of the future Joan of Arc was formed. The fleur-de-lis is the symbol of French royalty because it is also a symbol of fertility and of the Virgin Mary. The recuperation of Joan of Arc and Marie Magdalene by Catholics is an excellent example of what I call the conspiracy of history. But perhaps it bothers you that I use the word conspiracy. Well, a conspiracy is a secret shared by a few in order to allow a project to come to reality. In this case, the project was the Catholic religion. The fact that Catholics have hijacked the aura of two of their worst enemies is a lie that has been perpetuated for 1,700 years for Marie Magdalene by a very large number of people and successive generations. So, yes, it fits perfectly into the definition of a conspiracy. The conspiracy of patriarchal religious culture is even the mother of all conspiracies. And very often, this conspiracy is simply what is left unsaid. For example, there is a consensus among historians that Abraham's Judaism was polytheistic and therefore not at all patriarchal monotheistic. So, the religion brought to Palestine by Abraham and his descendants was polytheistic, fertile, feminine sacred for 1,800 years. It was only transformed, perverted, into a patriarchal monotheistic religion around 600 BC when some of the Jews of Palestine were held captive in Babylon under the authority and the influence of an extremely harsh and patriarchal culture. This helps us to understand why some people, like the Rastas, claim that the soul of the world was corrupt in Babylon. And the same kind of thing happened with Hinduism and Buddhism. The latter no longer had much to do with the original teachings of Buddha. Each time, the powerful, greedy for power, take over the religion's culture of freedom to transform them into a religion culture that conditions people to find it right to live in suffering, domination, and injustice. If you want to be intelligent, you have to be a conspiracy theorist, because it's the only logical way to make sense of everything that is happening in the world. I think that those who mock the conspiracy theorists, whether nicely or maliciously, are people who have too much pride to accept that they could have believed so many lies. But they are also afraid to face the truth because that would mean that they have to change their lives as a result. Mary Magdalena and Aisha were the legitimate heirs to a fertile culture, religion, sacred femininity that offer women and men total equality. They carried the same standards, but in both cases, the patriarchy managed to pass itself off as the official custodian of this religion and succeeded in turning their messages totally upside down. The patriarchy has tried to replace all these examples of free warrior women with the stereotype of enslaved women willing to put up with anything. Accordingly, they have created a veritable mental virus, the Virgin Mary virus, which has prompted many women to confuse love with pity. As a result, they often get involved with people who are less evolved and self-sufficient than they are. But often, concealed behind that behavior, which certainly has a generous side, is the fact that they need to be with people they can dominate and control. In the ebook, I have provided some examples for people who criticize conspiracists, so that they understand just how much we've been misinformed and that we are not obliged to destroy the planet. Did you know, for example, that in 1941 the car constructor Ford presents a prototype car that runs on vegetable oil made essentially from the hemp plant? And its body, which was 10 times stronger than steel, was made from hemp and soy. But the oil lobby was already too powerful, and for over 80 years they have been doing everything possible to prevent any alternative to oil and its byproducts. Without this historical footnote, we would not have any problem today with oil or plastic pollution, and we will also have far fewer deforestation issues. As a matter of fact, to protect their investments, oil and cotton companies and chemical drug sellers joined forces to virtually eradicate the cultivation of hemp, which was used to make the majority of the paper, clothes, robes, and numerous healing drugs. As a result, the trees were turned into paper and most of the forests were destroyed. I could cite similar examples in nearly every sector. In short, if we let the interest of the stock market continue to rule the world, it is quite simply the end of life on Earth. Every sector in daily life has been perverted to make more money for investors, even if it means destroying the entire planet. Medicine, politics, the mainstream media, science, and even education have been hijacked by the law of profit at any cost. And we are told that acting like an adult means accepting passively until there is nothing left to destroy. It is also crucial to point out that the world of finance, which diverts 95% of the world's wealth, serves no purpose, creates nothing, and destroys everything in its path. It often calls the unemployed and the poor parasites, but they are the real parasite. Did you know that even the debt we are constantly told about is groundless and should not be repaid? Indeed, through banks, the financial world has taken the right to produce money from governments. So every time a bank lends money, it creates it from nothing. It's called currency issuance through credit. It's a technical term that few people understand, but in practical terms, it's just a word for the greatest hold-up of all time. A few centuries of Pax Romana capitalism have brought the planet to its knees, economically, socially, and ecologically. We have reached the limits of capitalism, and capitalists know it. Faced with the collapse of the economic system they themselves create, their tactic is to speed it up to create the greatest economic, energy, and food crisis of all time. And to control the mounting popular unrest, they are passing increasingly freedom-suppressing laws using terrorism and the COVID pandemic as pretext. Most people believe that there are only two ways to run the economy, capitalism or communism, but both are dictatorships. Consequently, most believe that capitalism represents the right to own private property, but that's false. Capitalism is based on the idea that all human action must make money for capital, and that means mainly for those who own shares. And if that means that most people have to lose their jobs or their homes, it doesn't matter. That's what happened in the United States, where millions of Americans lost their homes. So, in the long term, capitalism means that individual property will disappear because only the big corporation interest will count and the dehumanized agents who work for them. If you do a quick assessment of the planet, you will see that the destructive system in place categorically refuse to stop destroying nature, and that they are willing to use all available armed forces to oppose anyone who stands in their way. They are even convincing the uninformed that environmentalists and anti-capitalist activists are terrorists when in fact they are superheroes. As for those who still believe in our democratic system, they must understand that there is no hope to be derived from the votes of the masses because the majority are completely asleep. Their votes are emotional choices and they have no idea of the real issues at stake. A democracy cannot function if people are not knowledgeable enough. Furthermore, we no longer live in an age where you can win a revolution with guns. But at the same time, we cannot wait any longer, or the planet will eject us all. So yes, we urgently need a magic wand. In other words, superpowers to take control without turning the planet into a battlefield. So an alliance was created with beings from different dimensions to bring a fertile culture to Earth, to stop destroying the planet and its inhabitants, and to begin the work of healing. The ultimate goal is to create an idyllic world for all life forms. And that's why we need help from the armies of the fertile goddess culture. To obtain help from these beings from other dimensions and their powers that defy the physical laws of our reality, we need to commit to three things. 1. To stop destroying the planet immediately and start cleaning it up. 2. To eradicate poverty and ensure that every human being has the opportunity to live in dignity. 3. To do everything in our power to humanly establish a fertile culture and gradually abandon our toxic culture that destroys everything. Indeed, an alliance has been created that is now almost ready to stage a worldwide coup with the aim of seizing power in every country. We will have the support of this alliance when we need it, but it's up to us, the humans to do the work and get organized to meet these three commitments. To achieve this, it is recruiting 144,000 souls to replace those in positions of responsibility. And to join the Alliance, there is no need to pay any membership fee or to register online. It's a contract between you and the fertile goddess family of light. To join them, you have to dare to put yourself at risk socially, emotionally, or economically to serve their cause, which is to create a world that is just and free as possible. It is your commitment and service to the cause of human liberation that prove your choice. You must become a warrior of justice and truth. Without lies, this unfair, selfish, and destructive patriarchal world can no longer exist. It will disappear like a bad dream, and many generations will wonder how humans could have accepted such an inhuman culture. We are not trying to convince anyone. We are looking for individuals whose souls are naturally in tune with this dream of a fertile culture. In fact, hundreds of millions of souls have incarnated on this planet with the aim of participating in its awakening, and we are searching for them. In this ebook, I explain how to get in touch with this alliance and how to join it. Only then you will realize that this is not a joke. It's a shamanic ceremony similar to those performed by the Templar and Essenes, of whom Mary Magdalena and Jesus were both members. These alchemical ceremonies are like a marriage between the person's soul and their immortal spirit. They are one of the foundations of fertile culture, as they enable consciousness to reconnect with the fertile network of the sacred feminine. The ceremonies will radically improve your inner connection, enable you to find out what your mission is and how you can participate in the advent of this new era. But don't confuse fertile awakening shamanism with patriarchal sleep-inducing shamanism. The greatest difference is that you don't need a shaman to practice awakening shamanism. You just need to dare to come face to face with yourself in a natural setting. Your deep desire to leave the sleep-inducing patriarchal network and serve the awakening fertile culture, combined with the protocol and password filter I describe in the book, will be more than enough. These ceremonies will act as alchemical filters, holding back our patriarchal programming and letting through only our eternal being of fertile culture. So you will understand that true alchemy is not about transforming lead into gold, but about transforming the patriarchal parts that weigh us down in order to liberate our eternal being, symbolized by the purity and preciousness of gold. So this alliance is our only way out, because those in power will do anything to keep that power. They know that the revolution will only grow, and like animals, they get scared when cornered. They are capable of the worst. They are willing to start World War III because they are totally insane, or to be more precise, they are totally possessed. And another reason for this madness is that 99% of people in position of responsibility are either on chemical drugs, are alcoholics, or both. Joe Biden, the current president of the United States, is a worthy representative. He is like one of the living dead. And if you look further, you will realize that all these political leaders and oligarchs grew up lacking love due, among other things, to a patriarchal upbringing, often a Jesuit or similar education like French President Macron or one of the richest men in the world, François Pinault. And patriarchal religious education is fascism embodied in education because it is designed to break down individuality and people his true nature. The more you grow up in a patriarchal culture, the more you tend to be materialistic and selfish. It is as if those people wanted to replace the love they didn't have with the accumulation of possessions, and that they needed to take revenge on others and on life in general because they have too many frustrations of all kinds. Without a minimum of affection, presence, and recognition during childhood, it is very rare for individuals to have compassion for others. I give these examples to make you understand that we are far from being free from the political hold of patriarchal religions. On the contrary, the key positions in politics and the world of high-level business are almost all occupied by people who declare themselves to be religious. Being married is practically a requirement for being elected president. The networks, values, and lifestyles of the dominate patriarchal religions are in power. Of the 20 richest people in France, 17 publicly declare themselves to be Catholic, Protestant, or Orthodox, 2 Jewish and 1 Buddhist. Almost all are very fervent believers and invest a lot of money in propagating their religion. Many of them were brainwashed during their religious studies. They are convinced that they are in some way on a crusade against the force of evil, so that the legitimacy of patriarchal culture religion, including of course capitalism, is not called into question. Some of them, including Bolloré, who makes no secret of the fact that he is a member of the sadomasochistic Opus Dei, own virtually all the mainstream French media, which enables them to influence public opinion and politics. And of course, they believe that if they are rich and powerful, it's because it's God's will. And it's the same all over the world. This alliance of capitalism and patriarchal religion is quite simply a cult, a sect, a mafia with international ramifications. Patriarchal religion, culture, and capitalism are 2 sides of the same coin. If we don't take away their powers and rid the world of their lies, there won't be much left on earth for the children being born today, if anything at all. The destruction of nature is also written in the Bible. The desire to dominate nature and the belief that man is stronger than nature are also concepts born out of patriarchal religions. In the Genesis of the Bible, you can read, "Fill the earth and have dominion over it. Submit the fish of the sea, the birds of the air, and every beast that moves on the earth." On the other hand, fertile religions culture coexist with nature, which is both their ally and their most sacred temple. They considered that one of man's duties is to protect it and to learn from it. It's time to prove to our children that we really love them. It's easy to say I love you. What counts are the proof of our love. And proving this love means putting our pride in our pockets and accepting that we are possessed by a force that manipulates us into acting against our will and destroying or allowing to be destroyed the present and future of all the children on the planet. And the solution to free ourselves from this force is to make proper psycho-shamanic ceremonies with psilocybin mushrooms. If you want to join the alliance, you have to make your inner development an absolute priority, which includes starting to do ceremonies as soon as possible to find your place in this divine comedy. Instructions for ceremonies can be found in the ebook. Once the Alliance has proved to the world that it is capable of taking power, it will be too late to sign up for this first wave. Naturally, there will be many other opportunities, but the more people who commit to caring and serving the banner of fertile goddess culture now, the better the transition will be for the greatest number of people. For that to happen, as many people as possible need to begin their healing and learning as soon as they can, so that they may then share it with others, particularly as teachers in these schools, universities of life. It is important to realize that the three religions of the book are one and the same religion, called the patriarchal religion. They may have minor differences, but all three impose the same culture, meaning the same lifestyles and values. And what also proves that these injunctions of patriarchal religions are harmful is that those who follow these religions with integrity are called fundamentalists, which has even become an insult. Yet, integrity should be a quality, not a defect. So, the true and only alternative to the sedating and destructive patriarchy is the cultures and lifestyle of the fertile, polytheistic, religion, sacred feminine. And unlike patriarchy, the more you follow this fertile culture with integrity, the more you will become a truly human being. And if you don't believe in this story of an alliance with the goddesses, I hope you will still study this practical program, which I propose to call The Solution, and that you will understand for yourself that it's pretty much the only possible way of creating a truly human humanity. And if you disagree, what do you propose instead? If enough people feed this vision into the collective unconscious, it will create an egregore which will make it easier for people to connect to this vision and make it real. Be aware that there is no more time to waste. The earth is about to eject everyone. And if you want to know if you are part of the problem or part of the solution, ask yourself where the world would be if everyone made the same choice as you. So, from now on, every breath you take will nourish either your being conditioned to patriarchy or your original, immortal, fertile being. On earth, you are free to choose, but you will never be free of the consequences of your choices. What we call life is a simulation, a kind of school and test in the same time. Because you are an immortal being with almost unlimited powers, but until you become a protector of life and justice, the whole of creation will plot to prevent you from regaining your magical powers and divine nature. You won't be at peace until you accept the role of warrior, defender of life and true justice. Have faith. If you persevere, you will find your true soul family. I would like to highlight the fact that this video is only a summary. There is very important information you need that is not in this video, but in the ebook called The Key to Save Our Humanity. To prove to you that we are not doing this for money, but also because teaching should be free, you can download it for free at the address on the website on the screen. For those who are willing or able to pay, you can find the link to buy it on the same website. The time has come to bring justice, equality, and fraternity back to this planet. Know that the Alliance has already won, and it is investing in this period of transition so that the greatest possible number of people can choose. Humanity will be born with or without your help, but with your genius it will be much, much, much better. May the force of the goddesses of fertility and the alliance that supports them be with you. Hasta la victoria siempre.